Crescent City Steakhouse, a true neighborhood restaurant operated by the Vojkovic family since 1934, is the oldest steakhouse in the city of New Orleans. Serving only hand-cut, prime-aged, corn-fed beef for over 80 years, Crescent City Steakhouse has become a dining destination for both die-hard locals and adventurous travelers who seek traditional, timeless New Orleans cuisine. Crescent City Steakhouse, 1001 North Broad, on the corner of St. Philip, in the heart of New Orleans.
Hey, don't forget my pimento cheese. Of course.
It's okay, I'll take it from here.
Hey, get the guy get a seat!
For the love of palmetto cheese.
Good evening and welcome to Primetime Sports. I'm Scott Alexander. I'll make this the fastest minute in television because we have such a big show for you today. We're going to talk LSU women's basketball. Of course, they got their first national championship. Angel Reese has 34 double-doubles this season, a 34-2 year. That's the most in the history of college women's basketball. And how about this? LSU men have never even won one. So congrats to Kim Mulkey and them. UConn, we're going to talk about that. John Brady is going to come talk about what it's like to win a national championship because he got close, but he never got there. This is the 5th time UConn has won one. Only Duke and UCLA have won more. And how about LSU baseball? They are still #1 in the country. That's right. They won yet another SEC series this weekend. And that guy, Paul Skeens, might be the first pick of the draft. We've been talking about his teammate, Dylan Cruz, being the first pick, but he might be as well. They're both amazing. LSU gymnastics, I got to give y'all some love. Sierra Ballard, Haley, Livy, all the great gymnasts on this team, they are going to the Final Four. Congratulations to them. Nola Gold, you had your 3-game win streak, snap, but 36 to 35, that loss is nothing to sneeze at. And the Masters is this weekend. How about that? My favorite time of the year is the Masters. We're going to talk to Mike Detillier about the draft, Saints, and LSU players. And don't forget, we're also going to have Chris Dodson. We're going to talk Pelicans because they're coming on right now, winning 7 of the last 8, right here on Primetime Sports.
Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding.
We can throw it.
Hey, welcome back to Primetime Sports. We got a fun show for you. A great one. We're going to talk a lot of information on this show. Later, we're going to have John Brady, the former LSU Final Four coach, to wrap up the NCAA tournament, talk about the upsets, talk about UConn, the winner, and also a little bit of LSU basketball, women and men's, and their great run. And also, we're going to talk Pelicans. Haven't had Chris Dodson on the show. He's going to come on. He's with Sports Illustrated. We're going to get all into their latest little run, and we're going to get also into their prospects in the playoffs. So that's coming. They're almost assuredly in. They just got to win one of them, and I think they could even lose them all, and they get in the play-in if a couple teams lose, and I think that's going to happen. But right now we're going to talk draft, and we're going to talk LSU women's basketball because those are the two big things on the topic of many people's minds here in the Crescent City and around the state of Louisiana. And there's no better person than I know on this earth than my man Mike Detillier. He had that draft book for so many years, over 3 decades, but he still knows it. He knows all the players, and we're going to get on that. And here he is right here. I worked with him for a year at WWL. I've known him for a decade.
What's going on,
Good to see you, my friend.
Good seeing you, buddy. Good seeing you.
I tell you what, my year there, you came back kind of full-time when I was starting my year. And more fun than to be with you and Bobby. The best parts were at the end of the show. Like we couldn't, and we just start talking.
You sound like John Ferrucci, because, okay, with Silver Slipper, John would always say, Mike, that stuff y'all do on the air is okay. That stuff y'all do off the air is gold, baby.
It's gold, man.
He said, I would sponsor that one. So, yeah, we had some good time. Really did.
You know, and I particularly love is the segment every week with Ed Ogeron, particularly before he was let go, but he still had to coach the rest of the way. But you guys are all by you guys. Y'all had a rapport that was unique, you know, because not many people could get stuff out of Ed like that. I mean, he's always open, but you, Bobby, and him, Bobby was his roommate, obviously, in college. Y'all have known each other for a while. That had to be fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun with Ed. That 2019 season was just great, and he's a very open guy. And like when he gets the head coaching job, he calls me, hey, I ain't got to worry about this, but you got to do 2 things for me. One, call my mama. Tell her, watch out what she tell the media. You know, moms can throw you under the bus and don't know any better about it. And he said, secondly, tell Bobby, I ain't worried about you, but Bobby, what happened on the bayou stays on the bayou.
Happens on the bayou. And Bobby sometimes gets loose lips. We know that.
Oh, yeah. And so, man, we had some great times with him. Will Wade was another guy. He would come to our TV show quite a few times on Tuesdays nights at McNeese. And the first show he does, I text him, and he said, I have not done any interviews.
Yeah.
I'll do yours. Yeah. And so he came on with us. We were so fortunate this year. Kim Mulkey every week would come on with us.
What a great year to have that.
She was absolutely gold. For me, doing this over 3 decades. Yeah. She's on Mount Rushmore. Yeah. I mean, every week she had something a little different. She had a take on things, and that's not a lot of distance between what's in her head and what's in her mouth. She tells you what she thinks. You might not like it, but that's what you're going to hear. Man, for us in the sports talk world, that's gold.
It's gold, man.
And she would always say, okay, Michael, 18 minutes, hold me to 18, never 18, 23, 24. And it wasn't us, it was her. She would drag those stories out.
Dude, I used to scrimmage with her back when she was played for Domino's AAU. She just played at Hammond High, and her head coach at Domino's, they were national champions every other year, was my godfather. So he would tell me, get some Jesuit guys, De La Salle guys, Newman guys. I want these girls to play against dudes. And for a week, and I'll tell you what, I'm going to say this. The coaching style is exactly like her playing style. Scrappy. Scrappy. And the girl could score, man. She had over 4,000 points at Hammond. But the girl could play, and she was great. She would call you names if you complained to the ref or something. I'm like, what the hell?
What I don't get today is all this social media outrage about trash talking and stuff. My thing is, did that just happen 2 weeks ago?
Right.
Man, Kim Mulkey's been involved with that.
Yeah.
My dad would always talk to me about how Chuck Bednarik knocked out Frank Gifford, stood over him, and gave one of those kind of fist bumps over the top of him. Okay, but they didn't have a camera everywhere. A mic everywhere. Oh, that's just the way football's played. Right. And it was, but still.
They're still doing the same thing?
Nothing's doing the same thing. Right. They're not hitting nobody like Chuck hit Frank. And that was a legal hit at that time. But when you stand over him and sort of celebrate, okay.
Especially when he had to sit out a year, too.
18 months he was out.
Frank Gifford was out. But yeah, this got a lot of play. Angel Reese.
My thing is, so what?
So what? I'm with you on that.
And I seen the scene.
Caitlin Clark didn't care either. She's been used to it. That girl, she's been on some playgrounds. I don't care how white as Wonder Bread she looks.
She's pretty good.
She can play. And you know what? That's just part of the game. She taunts too. Look at her right there.
Okay, John Cena did that You Can't See Me over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. We've seen it in football, basketball, baseball. All these sports have repeated what Cena has done. So why are you making a big thing about this?
Right.
Okay. Here's my thing. The same people that want to argue with you that they want freedom of speech and to say anything and to do anything as long as I'm not hurting somebody, they're the same people criticizing Caitlin Clark or Angel Reese.
Yeah.
They're the exact same people. My thing is, okay, let me look into your background when you're 21, 22, 23 years old.
No doubt, right?
And all of us admit we did some really dumb things.
Come on, man.
And still do.
If I had a camera on me back then, forget about it. Forget about it. I wouldn't be sitting right here.
It's something made out of nothing. But it gives them an opportunity. You know, that's what Twitter has become now. It's sort of been a cesspool in a lot of ways.
Come on.
In a lot of ways.
It's great that you get information right there, but man, it gives people a license to do whatever they think they can do that they wouldn't do to your face, that they're putting out there, and it's sickening
I
at
didn't know
times.
so many people had law degrees, medical degrees, political science. Man, you read that Twitter stuff, you'd swear that, a lot of these people went to college and spent their time doing something else.
I love that your relationship with Mulkey, though. I know you're one of the guys that people like to go talk to. And one of those people, and I never asked you this, and I wasn't sure I was going to get into it, but I want to, because I know you're a close personal friend of Carly McCord's, and I know y'all are very close. And I worked with her a few times doing the red carpet, a.k.a. the purple carpet at Northwest. Northwestern when they do the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame. Guys like the late Willis Reed, who just passed away, Burt Jones, Tommy Casanova. We would be some of the people interviewing these guys on the carpet before they went in. But I know there's a picture of her husband, the widow, Steve Ensminger's son, and that's his son. And I have some shots of you and her as well. And she spoke very glowingly of you, because I remember we were sitting there, and here's the one thing I didn't know about her, Mike, and I want you to expound on this. I heard her for about a year and a half, 2 years on the radio, seen her on TV, but we never crossed paths until when we worked together, right? I mean, so when we worked together, I realized something that I was blown away by. She's the sweetest girl in the world. She was the sweetest girl. I thought I was going to get something totally different. Mouth. She's sassy. I expected that. But the sweetness of her, like she cared about you as a person. She cared about people. She cared. And that surprised me. I don't know why, but man, that's why it hit so many people so hard, because the people that knew her knew what kind of just an inside she had and what a great human being she was. Yeah, she was a fabulous lady. She was impatient about her career, and I told her, hey, listen, you're going to get there. And you would figure, just as things start to mount up really good for her is when she got taken away. But her and I, we hit it off right off the bat. She had me on her radio station in Cleveland. She was sideline reporter for the Browns. Yeah. And she worked for CBS Radio there. They were the top-ranked morning radio show. Format changed. She got released along with everybody else. She comes back to Baton Rouge, and she works with Matt Moscone. Yeah, that's when I first got there. So we had a great relationship, her and I. About every other day there was a talk or a text between the two of us. She would ask me certain things. How do you think I should handle this? How do you think I should handle that? That's what I'm talking about. I knew she had that relationship. And she was really good at that. She thought so much of others, and she would go outside of her way to do things for people. And that's the part I'm talking about. Like, I got the news. You really saw a beautiful young lady who would do so much for so many people. She cared about you. If there was illness in my family, she was on that phone. Right. How's your wife? How's the kids? Everything. And so she was fabulous that way, and it's a loss. I think about her virtually every day. Yeah, I mean, I see that. I mean, listen, it's just 3 years ago. It's 3+. I remember I was sitting with my sons in Atlanta at their Mercedes-Benz Stadium, watching Oklahoma was about to play LSU in the national semifinal. Ronnie Rance comes down. I'm kind of in the lower section, and the game hadn't started yet. And he's like, Scott, I need to talk to you out here in the concourse. And obviously, Ronnie is the CEO, president of the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame. He goes, I know you've worked two of the Hall of Fame induction ceremonies with Carly, and I know y'all are friends. I got to tell you, she's passed away in a plane accident. So I'm saying that again for the people that don't know what we're talking about. I wanted to let them know. I know most people do, but that's something that hits you, man, because you just think about, A, you're losing somebody. You think about how many people she touched, and B, you just like you said, you saw that career blossoming. I mean, she just going on to WDSU and was getting some full-time work there, and other things. Most likely would have ended up on the NFL Network. No doubt. They had just talked to her. Fox Sports had talked to her. And so it's just sad. And she got too little, sort of helped a little bit. I knew how to make a phone call to somebody. She wanted to be in a movie. Yeah. And so we were doing a lot of stuff Hollywood South at that time. I made a phone call to somebody that I knew could maybe make that happen. And his first comment is, man, she's awfully short. I was like, yeah, okay. He said, but she'd be great in a movie. I'll tell you that right now. He said, I can get her 2 non-speaking parts if she wants to do it. So I call her up. And after she sort of gave me 2 words I can't say on the air, she was like, you got it? I was like, do you want it? And she was like, yes. Who do I have to talk to? I gave her the phone number. The lady, she called me back. She said, you're not going to believe it. I said, yeah, I believe it. I talked to the guy who's actually funding it. You're going to be fine with it. And to have all this happen, I got my first phone call to know about it. I knew she was going to Atlanta, but I did not know it was from Lafayette to Atlanta. I thought it was from Baton Rouge to Atlanta because we had talked to Friday. And there's your friend Steve Ensminger, her old buddy Slinger. So I got the phone call from Marty Chabert, who was working
for John Bell Edwards at that time, and he knew that we were real good friends. And he called and told me, he said, "Mike, you sitting down?" I was like, "Yeah." He said, "You hear about what happened with the plane crash?" I said, "Yeah, I heard they had a plane crash." He said, "Do you know anybody on that plane?" I said, "No, not that I know of." And he said, "Well, sit down. Let me tell you the story."
Yeah, right.
Because anytime there's a plane crash now, literally since 9/11, the governor is notified very quickly about it, and they notified him, and she was on the course of going there. But I knew she was going, but I didn't know it was from Lafayette to Atlanta. I thought it was from Baton Rouge to Atlanta. Great gal, miss her every day. And when I see those things on my Facebook memories, she pops up so many times. We took so many pictures together, and that was her deal about, hey, I'm not going to have another one like you to help me out like this. I was like, oh, come on, you got a long life to live. But yeah, she was super.
Well, rest in peace, Carly. We love you. Hey, moving forward, I saw the shot of LSU with Ensminger. He was the offensive coordinator on that magical season of 2019. Let's talk about the LSU players in this year's draft. That year had a record number of them, right? I mean, that was like one of the greatest drafts ever. The most first-round picks from one school. You had the most drafted people. I think it was 14 that were ever drafted.
And they actually had 22 guys from that team that either drafted or unsigned free agents.
Before the season, and that's the crazy. 22 in 1 year. That's not like spread out. But let's talk about this year's draft, because there's a number of guys that will be drafted from LSU. We're going to talk about Tulane and LSU, and then we're obviously going to cover some of the Saints' needs and maybe some people they can get. But let's start with LSU, because there are a number of players. You might not have that superstar like a Joe Burrow at the top, but you got some players that you like that might be drafted early.
Yeah, I think the first one, no question, is going to be B.J. Ojulari. He's a little bit of a hybrid player. More of a 3-4 outside linebacker, but we've seen him with his hand in the dirt. Really great pass rusher. The hardest guy LSU is going to have to replace in 2023 is that guy, B.J. Ojulari. What he meant to the team as a leader, his production, his pass rush skills. Also, he improved so much in his run defense ability, his ability to get off a blocker and get into the backfield, make a play against the run. I think he'll go very early in round 2.
What about some of his defensive mates out there? I mean, I know Ali Gay was supposed to be a high draft pick, but then
never played it.
And he didn't play it, right? He looked the part. There he is. He does look that part, right?
Yeah, when he comes off the bus, that's what a defensive end should look like. Now again, from a technique standpoint, he needed a little bit of work. He's gotten better at it. He just needs to stay healthy. But man, he's got a huge wingspan. He can get up the field. He's real quick. Can he put some consistency to his game? I'm looking at probably a middle round pick for Ali Gay. But I think the guy I've gotten more phone calls about than anybody else.
Can I guess this? Because if it's the same guy I called when he won a state championship, is it Jacqueline Roy?
Yes, Jaqueline Roy.
Jaqueline Roy, that's it. Jaqueline Roy had the best feet I've seen for a big guy when he was a sophomore. Man, they won the title against De La Salle in the Superdome, and he won again the next year. Tell me about why you love him, because I was surprised. If you've seen his potential, third round could be a little low. You might be getting a steal if you're going to get him there.
I think he's a top 100 pick. They played him over the nose this year and sort of moved him around. They had to give Wingo a little bit of a break. Now, he didn't get a lot, but I think he could play defensive tackle, can play over the nose. His pass rush ability is what jumps out at you. He always has played the run well. It's his ability to get up the field and be a potential interior pass rusher and blowing up that inside pocket.
That's the thing, because you don't get those kind. I'm not going to say he's Warren Sapp or anything, but those kind of guys, the Aaron Donalds, if you can get some push to the quarterback as opposed to just taking up space, that makes you that much more valuable on a team, particularly if you have the ability to sack quarterback. Sheldon Rankins was pretty good at it, and he's bigger than Rankins. Am I right?
Yeah, he's a bigger guy than Rankins. Now, again, what Rankins could do better is rush the quarterback.
Right.
And so I think Roy's just going to scratch the surface of his ability as an interior pass rusher.
What do you think about those guys in the secondary? I know they used the transfer portal to get some players in. I believe Jay Ward might have been one of those. Am I correct?
No, Jay Ward came in.
He came in?
He was a recruit.
Okay, so he came in from Georgia, right? So when you talk about him, what is his potential in the NFL?
Right off the bat, versatility. He's played edge corner, he's played nickel, he's played free safety, he's played the dime safety.
Okay.
Man, you
That's
can
a
give
lot.
me those 4 spots.
Yeah.
He's not the fastest guy, but he's got great instincts to the football. He's a good open field tackler, and I really think you're probably looking at him 3rd, maybe early 4th. But I look at him a little bit of a guy that could sneak into that top 100 because of his versatility.
Yeah.
Because I don't have to take him off the field. That nickel corner is 3/4 of a starter. Okay, and he's a better player than Cordell Flott. Cordell Flott was in the 80s last year as a selection in round 3.
Right on.
He's a better player than Cordell was.
Right. What about Converse? I mean, Jarek Bernard.
I saw him at Evangel. He was a receiver, played some defensive back, goes to Oklahoma State. Basically was a 3 3/4 year starter at Oklahoma State. Comes in, starts last year. Great speed, really good athlete. He's much better in press coverage than in off coverage, but I think he's got a chance to play late round pick. Mekhi Gardner is just the opposite.
Yeah.
He is a big physical guy, started at ULA and then transferred here. Kind of likes to beat you up a little bit. One thing with him, they picked on him last year. You know what? It didn't affect him. Man, come on, throw it again. I dare you. He was like daring teams throw it. It did not break him.
Right.
And so I like a guy who's got some titanium in the backbone. Mekhi Gardner's done that, and he's had a really good offseason.
I'm going to tell you this. Keyshawn Butte would have been a high pick if he'd been eligible to come out the year before. I mean, this guy was, some said, the best receiver in the country. I mean, he had some things going on. Lots of issues off season. Lots of things happening. He almost went to Alabama. I know Gordon McKernan was telling the story where he got him in the NIL because he didn't want Bama to get him and become the next Jameson Williams. Well, this year it didn't pan out like most of us expected to, and I don't know how that affected his draft stats, but it had to affect a lot.
Yeah, he's not going to be a 1st or 2nd round pick. He's going to go somewhere either in round 3, possibly even slipping into the 4th round.
Wow.
His offseason.
Would that be a steal or no? I mean,
my thing is he's never been the same guy since he's had the 2 procedures on his ankle.
Oh.
And then he comes to LSU's pro day, he's out of shape. He's winded.
That's terrible.
And so all I'm saying is you got to understand the moment at this point.
Yeah, right.
For him.
Yeah. This is, if you're coming in winded then they're looking at you like this is what we're going to get.
Okay, what happened to bring you to this level as a player? And we all know he's a really good route runner. But last year he dropped some easy catches. In Florida State game, okay, you couldn't ask Jaden Daniels to hit him any better. Right between the hands, he drops it at the goal.
That's horrible. I know the offensive lineman Bradford's going to get drafted. We want to get to the Tulane.
Yeah, Anthony's a good player.
That's a guy that
really
could be
good player, middle round pick.
So Tulane, I mean, come on, man. What a great season they had. I remember giving them lots of accolades on this show, and they're going to have at least 2 guys drafted, maybe 3 if Nick Anderson can slide in there. But Tyjae Spears, who will be on this show, by the way, the draft week. He's coming back. He was on right before the Cotton Bowl. He's coming back on to talk about his draft potential the week he's getting drafted. But what do you see in this kid? Because you look at him, he doesn't look big when he sits in this chair.
He's not a big guy.
He's not, but he is so strong. I've watched him carry 3 or 4 guys, and I'm like, whoa, I've seen him in the chair. He doesn't look big at all, but he's strong.
He runs well between the tackles, his quickness, his ability to make the first man miss, and then to hit stride out in the open field. He catches the ball well. He's going to have to get better as a pass protector. I thought he was good in that area. He's got to improve, but running back position is devaluated today.
I know it is. It is.
And so you'll see 1 first-round pick running back. That's Bijan Robinson from Texas. In round 2, you'll see Jahmyr Gibbs. I think Zach Charbonnet is going to slip.
Zach. I don't know why Zach's slipping so much, but I think
into the 2nd round.
Yeah, I think he's good.
So now the big question is, he's going up against the A-Chain, Devin A-Chain from Texas A&M, to be the number 4-5 back. I think he slips into round 3. He's going to be a great steal for somebody. Physically, we know he's got to get stronger, but man, he's made some huge plays and carried that offense many times for the Green Wave last year.
Tulane linebackers, I mean, I know Dorian Williams has got
Dorian Williams is not going to go too much farther past Tajay.
3rd round at worst, right?
I think he's going to be a top 75, top 80 pick.
He's great.
His ability to run the field, he's a good open field tackler. He's gotten better in coverage. I've had a lot of people talk to me about Dorian.
I mean, Nick if Nick doesn't get drafted, he's going to be in a camp and he's going to show
He's
some
going to
people.
make a team.
He's going to make a team. I'm telling you, this kid's heart and his athletic ability and leadership are off the charts.
I agree with you 1,000%. He's small, but he's quick, great instincts, tough guy, leader, outstanding open field tackler, and he can cover.
That's
and he
big.
can play great on special teams.
Hey.
I think that's the other part of it.
Sam Mills, man, who knows? Real quick, I got to say something about the Saints. Give me some guys that we can look at that might be draftable for the Saints.
I would not be surprised that it's going to be a big man. Is it going to be defensive tackle or defensive end? I think both those spots would need upgrading. Keon White from Georgia Tech, Maze Smith from Michigan, the defensive tackle. Those are two guys to kind of look for if you're looking for offensive linemen. Osiris Torrance, Louisiana kid, goes to UL Lafayette last year at Florida.
Yeah,
pure guard,
yeah.
man. And he is a top-heavy guy who moves people around like checkers on a checkerboard. And so he's a guy that I could think could
Billy
be there.
took him to Florida, huh?
Yeah, Billy Napier took him to Florida. The other position, tight end. It's the best year I've ever done at tight end.
Tight end. Michael Mayer. I mean, come on. I did Dalton Kincaid's games for Utah, right? I mean, this guy right here, they got.
I think Dalton will be gone.
But he's
Mayer could potentially be there. Darnell Washington from Georgia.
Georgia, yeah.
And I think the wild card, because he didn't play much last year, Luke Musgrave.
From Oregon State, yeah.
Who is a really good player. I've never had 4 tight ends in my top 35. I do this year.
Wow, Mike, really?
Never in my 36 years doing this. Never has it happened. And so it has happened this year. Really good year for tight ends. And so, again, I think it'll be a big man. Offensive lineman, defensive lineman, tight end. And certainly they need somebody to help in a running game as a blocker, run blocker. I think that's something that's not in this offense today. For the Saints.
They have to have it.
They have to have a big man out on the edge.
Always love it, brother.
Thank you, brother.
I miss working with you every day.
Same
that
here,
was
baby.
a fun
Same
year
here.
for me. Hey, you know what we do here? We got task performance.
I got one like that, and that's awesome.
They feel
I love this
so
shirt.
good. They feel so good. By the way, when you get off work, if you get off one of those 5:30s, pop on down to Delachey's or Shay's Delachey's.
I appreciate it.
It's the best wine list in the city.
With me too?
Bring A-Bear. I'm going to come join y'all, please, and y'all call me. I might even bring another one of those. We'll have some fun.
Thanks so much,
And
Scott.
speaking of
Appreciate it.
having happened, I don't know. I assume you've been on the ball because you've been on the show before.
Yeah.
Let's get you on. Let's get you on making sure. But I'm going to be in purple, even though it's going to be on the LSU ball. There's Tim Floyd. There's Archie Manning. There's 4K. You know all these folks.
Yep.
Mike, I appreciate you, man.
Thanks so much, Scott.
We love
Appreciate
you.
it, buddy.
We love
Thank
you.
you.
Hey, check him out on WWL. That's right. The L, they call it there. It's 870 AM, and they are the big dogs in this city when it comes to radio and have done it for now 101 years. I was on the 100th year when they celebrated. Now it's 101.
We had some good times.
We did, brother. Also, love you,
Thank you,
man.
Scotty.
Yeah, Mike's one of the great guys in this town, in this business. Hey, moving forward, we're going to talk later in the show with John Brady. You know, he's out in California right now, so we're going to get him on a Zoom call. We're going to talk to him about the NCAA tournament. But next, we know you're talking about the Pels. They got 4 regular season games left, so we got a guy that covers them for Sports Illustrated Pelican Scoop. His name is Chris Dodson. Coming up next, right here on Primetime Sports.
Max Durbus Realtors has been providing commercial and industrial real estate services to its clients for nearly 100 years. Since 1934, Max Durbus has been locally owned and operated throughout the greater New Orleans area, including the North Shore, Hammond, and even the Mississippi Gulf Coast and beyond. We focus on your commercial real estate needs so you don't have to. More information is available at 504-733-4555. The recent devastation from hurricanes have caused insurance companies to significantly raise their rates. However, most of them are offering large discounts if you install a fortified roof system, which uses larger nails and has a much stronger resilient base underneath the shingles. The fortified roof professionals at Skyline Contractors can install these new roofing systems for you. More information is available at 504-355-6845 or at skylinecontractors.us.
Hey, welcome back to Primetime Sports. How about all that draft info? I am ready now. Let's get it going. It's only in 3 weeks, and I cannot wait. The Saints, thank goodness they picked up that late first rounder for our man Sean Payton, and also what a good synopsis of the LSU women's team. They deserve all the credit in the world. And let's root for that gymnastics team next week. They got a miracle to get into the Final Four coming up, and obviously we know the Ballards. They promote this show. They always retweet it. Their daughter Sierra is one of the main gymnasts, so I can't wait to see her and the rest of her teammates compete this weekend, hopefully bring home another national championship. When speaking of championships, that's what we won here for the Pelicans, don't we? And right now, they're playing like a champion, and Brandon Ingram's playing like the best player in the league. That's what his coach said yesterday, Willie Green. And I'm telling you what, when you're averaging over 30 and 8 assists and 6 rebounds over your last 8 or 9 games, well, you got to get some consideration for at least Player of the Month. And here we are to talk about it. My man, Chris Dodson, now I met him a few years ago. He wrote an article on Nola Gold when I was working with the Gold. It was a great article for Forbes magazine. But he's been covering this Pelicans team for 7 years. He's with Sports Illustrated, Pelican Scoop. Works with Kyle Mosley, our guy right there. But I know he's at every game. He goes to some of the road games as well. He started the season going up to Brooklyn. Y'all remember that game? That was a nice outcome. And he's been following them the rest of the year as well. If you've been following this team, Chris, the whole year, you've been on a magic carpet ride, my friend.
Yeah, we've come a long way since Brooklyn. That was a magical night for me. First time I've been up to Brooklyn, seen that arena, seen Zion and B.I. open a season. They had all that excitement. And then we have the whole regular season to talk about where you have that 10-game losing streak. We're here now in the play-in, maybe getting the 5th or 6th seed. Yeah, it's been a ride this season.
You know, I don't have a ton of media on the show because it's mostly driven by, athletes and coaches and maybe some musicians. But this time of year, man, I've been thinking about when's a good time to bring you on. I've been thinking about this literally since about January. And now, could it be any perfect than right now? Because we have going all these teams bunched up from, well, I think 4 is pretty much almost settled now, but 5 seed down to the 11 seed. I mean, it seems like it's all cramped, and one game could switch about 5 or 6 teams just like that.
Right. It's a perfect time to bring me on because, one, you're going to bring it up. We're done with college basketball. Right. The play-in tournament is really bringing new excitement.
It really
has.
You
got people in New Orleans watching Charlotte versus Dallas, hoping Charlotte wins this late in the season. That doesn't happen. That's bringing up the NBA ratings, but it's also bringing up just this basketball city, which New Orleans is becoming. You're seeing it with LSU being so close to the women. You're seeing it with a lot of the coaches you bring on with high school and college. And you see that kind of bubbling up with the Pelicans. And that's even more excitement for this team because they've got something to play for. But, this city, we can always look at what we have to lose. And if there's always that thing, maybe they might fall off. But this looks like the season they're going to hold on, and they're going to give us more of what they gave us last year in that 6-game series against Phoenix.
I'm thinking back, our prior guest, Mike Detillier, and I are both older fellas that remember going to the Superdome and Municipal Auditorium and Little Fieldhouse for the New Orleans Jazz. I literally missed 7 games in 5 years. We had season tickets, never missed, and I only missed those because I had my own JV games back then. Because when they left, I was like 13 or 14. But the fact is that this team has brought excitement. You got me all excited when you just said this is becoming a basketball city, because everybody knows that's my favorite sport. I love football. Don't get me wrong. I love it. And I love all these sports. But basketball is my sport. So when you see this, when you're in the arena, you're the perfect person to ask, because I have only been to a handful of games this season there. But you're at all of them. When you're seeing this team and the fan support, and I remember going to a game that was sold out on a Monday. And I'm not saying that's every Monday, but I was like, okay, we're getting there. But you've seen this progression over the last few years. And what makes you say this is becoming a basketball city?
Just what you see in the arena. You see less Laker jerseys that you see, to pick a game out for an example. That was Tuesday night. You had Golden State come in, but it was more people cheering and wearing Herb Jones jerseys, Jose Alvarado jerseys. It isn't just the big 1 or 2 selling jerseys. You see this city's just supporting this whole roster, the whole locker room, and they know about these players. You see it's the little things. You see the trivia games during the middle of the game, and the fans know about these players. They're invested. And when you see that and you see the players like Jackson Hayes, who isn't a great, big name on the marquee this season, he's building courts in this city and putting his name to that, and people are showing up, they're turning out, they're using the courts, and you see the game being played a lot more leading up to the games. During the games, you see more kids in there being invested and not just on a family night. So it's becoming a smarter basketball city from the ground up.
I love that you just said that, because I don't want to underestimate the community thing. And I'm not getting in the community, but they do gravitate. Like, I'm going to give you just 2 examples off the top of my head. What you just mentioned, one great example with Jackson Hayes, but how about, what Larry Nance is doing with the schools. I mean, he's supporting schools so much. He gives money for teachers just to give them some supplies and things. And he's always promoting schools. I remember I was watching an interview after a game with Jen Hale doing something, and he popped in, but he was going to visit some fans, the school kids, out in the stands way after the game. It might have been 45 minutes after the game. They're all hanging out, and he's spending his time doing that. I remember when C.J. McCollum, whose mom lives in my building, I just saw her the other day. She's like, hey, man, I told her, your son, the first thing he didn't want attention for it, but he got here and he gave all these people money just to have a good Thanksgiving and things like that. Little things that they're not actually asking for the attention, but they're doing for the community. This has to help rally, the fans around a team like that that's willing to do some stuff like that for them.
Yeah, and people don't see that. They're ushering you out of the stadium once the game's over, but they have youth leagues that come in and play, and Larry Nance to go out there, CJ, certain players will go and inspire those kids, and also talk to the coaches. And you know what it means to have those coaches be more inspired and wanting to go out and deal with the kids, and they can connect with it. That, you've seen it when I covered Forbes and Nola Gold and the Pelicans back in the day. I care more about that community stuff than I care about the on-court process some days.
Yeah.
Because I'm from here too.
Right.
And you see those players come out and do those after the game things that they don't get credit, but you see those players get love in other ways, in ways that in the past you didn't have with this team. Going back to the best example, Anthony Davis and the Ruffles being left on the shelf. He wouldn't even let the FedEx guy come up to the gate, where this team, you have their parents, and Trey Murphy's dad love hanging out with him in the stands. He goes out to some of the fan clubs at Mid-City Yacht Club, the Rusty Nail, those sorts of things. CJ's mom.
I love that.
You see the families getting involved.
He does the watch parties?
Yeah.
That's so cool, man. I love that. And but this is when you mentioned the jerseys with Herb Jones and Alvarado out in the crowd, because you give love, you get love, particularly in this city. And you see the love. We just mentioned some of it, but you see the camaraderie on the court. Now, we missed some of it early mid-season because some key players were hurt. Alvarado's hurt right now. Herb Jones was out. But I just remember that feeling, the warm feeling that the city got just watching the way they competed last year just to get inside the playoffs. Obviously, they had to have some things happen at the end of the season. They did. They had to beat the Spurs in that first game. That happened. They were down big late in the third quarter to the Clippers to get into the playoffs. They had to win those two play-in games.
Murphy explosion game.
And that Trey Murphy went off, but that speech, obviously, even Willie himself was like, I was planning to give the post-game speech to say what a great year it's been. Hey, we fought hard, blah, blah, blah. And he gave the speech that you see played at the game sometimes now at the end of the third quarter, and that prompted them to come back. And then you saw how they competed against the Suns, and that's what most people are going to remember, that 6-game series where they won a couple and they fought hard in just about all of them. That's the kind of, it's things that this city likes to rally around. They see you're trying. You mentioned Anthony Davis. I know he's talented, but I said this from the beginning. I said, I've been around the NBA for 30 years as either an agent or covering with TNT, and I'm like, that body language I saw from him was horrible. The only time I saw him excited, like he really wanted to be here, was that 4-game series against the Blazers when they swept them. It's easy to be that way when you're winning, but yeah, it looks to me that these guys enjoy being here, and I want your opinion because you're around them now. I don't know this team very well. You do. Do they really care about being here?
Oh, they do. The first couple games of the season, you see B.I. had the video up. He's dapping people up, giving hugs, but the shirt literally says, for the city. It's for Ingram. And to the credit,
that's pretty cool.
It used to be all the eggs were in one basket. I was criticizing the team on how they didn't even print Drew Holiday jerseys back in the day. It was all Anthony Davis. Now look in the stands. Everybody's got a jersey. Literally everybody on the team, you can find someone wearing their jersey, going down to even Garrett Temple, because he's a local guy at LSU. The family's out there. Billy Hernan Gomez, he's got his, I won't say groupies, for lack of a better word, might be the wrong thing. No, but him being in Hustle, he got the certain crowd out the same way Tyler Hero does. It's that sort of crowd, but there's still love for him in this city, and that's what you love to see. And credit to the organization for, one, having a roster that's that lovable, and two, for actually promoting all of them at some point.
No, that's cool, because this is a team. You're right. This is a team where you get contributions from nearly everybody. You mentioned Willie. I mean, I remember watching that movie last summer. I was like, blown away. I said, is that him right there? No, it was great. By the way, if you haven't seen Hustle, watch that on Netflix with Adam Sandler, who plays like a scout and then maybe an assistant coach as well. But, the star of it is Willie Herman Gomez, and it was a great movie as well. You saw it, obviously.
Yeah, obviously saw it, but I obviously saw 6-7 people in Birmingham for that G League, not G League game, preseason game that we had in Birmingham. They showed up for Billy. They actually cheered loud and got on the rail. I think one of them actually tried to hop the rail. It was ridiculous.
Oh, wow. He's got groupies. That's right.
It was actually fun. It was like, all right, this is going to be something. That's when I kind of knew, because you had Alvarado from last season's playoff run. You had other players that had made names for themselves. But we were getting down to Billy Hernan Gomez actually has 2 van loads full of people coming to see him. This team will be loved, and they're going to follow him all the way through the season. I hope they got a good story out of it, and it looks like these last 4 games they're really getting their value out of being invested all year.
I mean, wasn't Alvarado undrafted? I mean, he was an undrafted free agent, and then he becomes a folk hero literally right here. Obviously played at Georgia Tech, who I knew that team well.
Got his own shoe now.
He's got his own shoe. Well, hey, let's talk about some elephants in the room. I'm going to get to Zion in a second, but let's talk about B.I.'s explosion, because you can say all you want, but he came back rusty, as most people do when they miss 30-something games. For this team to most likely finish over 500, with having your 2 stars miss a combined maybe 80, 90 games, you would know the number better than me, with Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram, I would say this is an accomplishment. A lot of people like the over and under on the wins, I believe, was somewhere in the 42.5 range. Could have been higher, could have been lower, but around there. Now, for a while, it looked like they weren't going to touch that. Now it looks like they might be right on it. So what's your take on what job Willie has done in the explosion of Brandon Ingram so far?
Yeah, look, Brandon Ingram's really stepped up. I think he kind of heard the noise. Trey Murphy said something about the Clippers chirping last week, and then both of them kind of went off. I think Brandon Ingram's heard that throughout the last few years of him missing games. We're up to, depending on when people watch this, going to be flirting with 80 games combined and missed between Zion and B.I. just this season. They've only played together 13, 14 times.
Right.
Once in Brooklyn, and we've seen what that was. At the start of the year, yeah, they were at 42.5, I think, was the about Vegas line, depending on how they fluctuate.
Yeah, over for wins, yes.
But December 30th, it was at 50-something because they were sitting in first place. I feel bad for the people that made that bet, because we all know 3 days later Zion goes down.
Well, you never buy high, all right? You buy low.
There was a lot of excitement going into the new year, and then it just all went to not,
but they got it back, though. They've won 7 of 8. Tonight's a big game. This show will be airing right when the game starts. So, I mean, obviously these 4 games are important. I mean, we know that they're going to be a 6 or 5, right? What is it going to be if they win all 4?
All 4, they would have a shot at the 5th, depending on help. They would definitely get the 6th.
Probably rather the 6th, right?
Yeah, if
do you want to play Phoenix right now? I mean, I don't know.
I actually want Memphis. I actually want to see, especially if Zion comes back and we get that Zion Ja, that sort of thing. One, the travel. Draymond talked about how the Warriors want, the Kings just because of travel. Memphis is right there. I really want to see that. Go ahead and test yourself. Don't look for the easy out in the first round.
I'm not saying that, but I mean, Sacramento, we don't get to the second round very often, and that team scares me the least. I mean, I know they score 121 points a game. No slight on them. They just don't scare this team for whatever reason. Neither did the Denver Nuggets. I know the Nuggets didn't have Jokic when they played, so that's obviously you're talking about 2-time MVP. Right. That makes a difference, but I've watched them match up. I mean, they've lost. You remember when they lost a big lead? I don't know if that was this year or last year, but they do that. But you're right. Just play whoever's there. But Memphis is scary. I got to tell you, Memphis to me could be the best team in the league overall when they're fully healthy and they're moving around.
Right. I mean, to be the champs, you got to beat the champs. The Grizzlies had the Warriors on the ropes, just like the Pelicans had the Warriors on the ropes a few weeks ago, and then they dropped that 20-point lead. But I would just, depending on how Zion comes back, regardless, I want to see this team challenged as much as possible before they have to start making big decisions this offseason. So if you can't match up with Memphis now, go ahead and find out what you need instead of like the KD, Phoenix. I'm not really worried about them because Chris Paul's getting aged out, that sort of stuff. So go ahead, handle business, win 4 games, and see what you can do.
I mean, they got some 8 and played great in the playoffs last year. I'm looking at Zion right here. What do you think for the playoffs? I mean, you think this is something? I would think if he's going to come in, you don't want him just to jump right in a play-in game. Is there any chance he can play in the last game or two before he would jump in? Because I'd like to see him at least in the regular season at least once.
Everybody'd love to see him. I don't know if he can make it back. I think more now you're worried about the messaging and what you're going to hear in this next update in the next day or two because it's been more of admit what you cannot deny, deny what you can't admit. They knew he wasn't coming back, so yeah, we'll admit that he's going to be out another 2 weeks. Then it's another 2 weeks. They don't want to deny that he's out for the season if that's the case yet, because that would kind of put a damper on the season. But I do think he can come back just from the body language of this team, just from the social media posts and what you're hearing in the locker rooms and how you've seen Zion be engaged, and even during losses, going into that locker room after the Lakers and Houston losses and getting mad at the team. His investment tells me he's still engaged for a reason, so you got to think he can come back for at least a game or two.
I want to put you on the NBA ball, but that one's pretty darn full. And you're a basketball guy, at least right now you are, so I'm going to get you on the basketball. This has got some big names already on it, Dale Brown, John Brady, and others. This is my NCAA ball. You mind signing that one? That's what we do on the show.
I don't mind that at all. I get right here.
We do colors at post-COVID. I had 2 years off. We also give gifts. Is that pin okay? Okay.
Oh, yeah,
I just saw that.
And we got the blue for the Pelicans. I like it.
There you go. I like it. There you go. Hey, by the way, Chris Dodson, I appreciate you. We give gifts. Task Performance. I know you're going to love this shirt. It's the softest shirt you'll ever put on. I promise you that.
Oh, yeah.
Bamboo cotton. That's one of the best. That's a great color you got there.
Pastel, especially going into Easter. This is going to get worn.
There you go. Going to Easter. That's right. It's pastel week. Yeah. That's right. You got to get out your summer clothes out. So the Shades Delachaize, that'll get you a few glasses of wine over there. You can go to Delachaize on St. Charles. Chris, thank you for coming, my man.
Thanks so much, Scott. Appreciate you having me on.
Hey, follow my friend on Sports Illustrated and, of course, Pelican Scoop. And Kyle Mosley, I'll give you a shout out as well. You do a great job over there, guys, and continue the good work. Hey, we're gonna switch gears a little bit. We're gonna have my man John Brady on a Zoom call. He's out in California right now. His daughter's about to have a baby. She's a former Laker girl, by the way, and she also danced with Katy Perry on tour. That's pretty big. But John's out there, and we're gonna probably just have a phone call this time. Our Zoom's not working real well. We're gonna talk about the NCAA tournament and a little more on Kim Mulkey and her LSU Tigers coming up right here on Primetime Sports. Hey, welcome back to Primetime Sports, and like we've been teasing all show, well, we've got John Brady, who's been our basketball analyst for 7 years. He retired right when this show started back in 2016. He's been on at least 50 times over that stretch, but here he is again. He's not live today. In fact, we don't even have him on Zoom. We're supposed to have a Zoom, and it wasn't working, so we're going to have him on the phone. He's out in California right now. He's about to have the birth of another grandchild. I know he can't wait for that. But John, how you been, my friend?
I'm doing well, Scott. Miss seeing you, man.
It's been a while. It's been a minute. I know we had lunch or dinner at least once a week, and now you moved back out of town, so that's a little bit sad. But we got a nice picture of you, by the way. Way better looking than you are now. This is a picture probably from about 15, 20 years ago, but you're looking sharp. So what's going on?
Fridge full, baby.
All right, but hey, what's happening with this tournament, man? This is one of the crazy ones. I remember back in 2006 when you brought your LSU Tigers there as a 4 seed. You had the 3 seed Florida, who ended up winning. The high seed was UCLA at 2, but you had an 11 seed at George Mason. Now this one, there's no 1, 2, or 3 seed. You have a 4, 2 5s, and then you had the 9 seed with Florida Atlantic. But the 4 ended up winning. UConn was dominant last night. They ended up winning every game by double digits. The closest game they had was 13. Did you see any of that, John, going in the tournament, that UConn could be this dominant?
Well, I liked UConn from the beginning. I thought they had a really good team early on when I saw them on TV. And then they went through a little lull there in January, but really got it back right. And, you know, the most dominant winning since 2009 North Carolina when they ran through the tournament like this. And I didn't see it coming to that extent, but I always liked UConn. I had them in my Final Four. And I don't know if this is a sign of the times with mid-major schools. If I was an AD and I wanted to know how a mid-major school should get to the Final Four, I'd go spend about 3 or 4 days with Dusty May and ask him how he put that team together to get them in a position to do what they did. So I thought it was an exciting tournament. I love the upsets, and I know you know about all the upsets because you're good with those kind of numbers. But
no, Florida Atlantic, you're right. What a story they were just to get there. They had some huge wins along the line, but you're right. There's 3 teams in this tournament that had never been to the Final Four. That hadn't happened in a half a century, and that's kind of crazy when you think about it, John. But let's harken back to when you went because, I mean, you were also a 4 seed. You didn't get all the way, but you got 4 big wins. I remember I was at all 4 of those, and I was at your loss in Indianapolis as well. But what was going through these guys' minds, these first-year coaches? Because you had 3 of them there. What's that like when just the first time you're on the big stage?
Well, for me personally, I just tried to make it all about the next game. I didn't have to do anything to get our team involved. I tried to keep them away, tried to make it as normal as I possibly could to play the next game the best we possibly could play, regardless of what happened the game before. So I just tried to keep our team focused on the moment, in the moment, and play the next game the best we can. And I think that's what most of the coaches tried to do here, especially, Scott, in today's world with this Final Four, with all the distractions that can happen. I think the more you can keep your team focused on the task at hand, the better chance you have to win.
Yeah, you mentioned that Florida Atlantic team. We're showing some pictures right here of the game they lost. The first time a Final Four had a game-winning shot that was when they were down and not just tied. So that shot meant everything for them to get to the finals. Obviously, they ran out of gas. But I want to go to UConn real quick with Danny Hurley because that family has such a storied history. His brother Bobby, as you know, is one of the greatest point guards in NCAA history as far as what he did. 2 national titles. He has the career assist record in the ACC. There's Danny right there. Danny obviously was at Seton Hall when he played. He obviously coached a few places, including Rhode Island. He worked his way up. He had coached some high school at St. Benedict. And his dad, what the legendary coach he is, over there at St. Anthony in Jersey City. They have such a legacy. And as a coach that's been a coach for so long, when you see this family of coaches, and obviously Bobby, I didn't mention this, but he's at Arizona State right now coaching himself. So this is a family of coaches. I mean, when you see them in the crowd, doesn't that warm your heart a little bit, Coach?
Oh, absolutely. It's great to see, a coach like his father, who wanted to be a high school coach all his life. He had no desire to move to the next level, although he could. And the lives he's touched, the influences he has had, on all kind of young people. Now both his sons are doing the same thing that the father did, and to see that in the stands and the mom sitting there, I think it's a great story, and it's a legacy in college basketball. I think that is probably one of the best stories that are in the game today.
I totally agree. I remember having dinner with him one time. I was very fortunate. I was just with a group of people, about 6 of us, in the 2008 Final Four in San Antonio, and this guy is razor sharp with basketball. He's humble, and I'm talking about his dad, obviously, Mr. Hurley, Coach Hurley, Danny and Bobby's dad. But when you see this guy's mind is all about the next play, and he's always talking about that was the only year they had 4 number 1 seeds, and he was talking about what it's going to take for Kansas or Memphis or UCLA or whoever else to win that tournament. So having dinner with coaches is nothing like it because you get the game plan before the game plan. But I also want to talk about some upsets in this tournament, which we always have a few. We remember Virginia was the first number 1 seed that fell a few years ago to a 16 seed. Well, that happened again. And you mentioned how the mid-majors can get there a little quicker now, but even these 16 seeds aren't scared of the 1 seeds anymore. You had all 4 number 1 seeds out of the tournament. That's Fairleigh Dickinson right there. All 4 number 1 seeds were out before we even got to the Elite 8. So is this something we're going to see a lot more now that there's more parity, more players, and with the transfer portal filling middle major teams up a little more?
I think that's a good point. I think that may happen. We'll just see over time how it develops. But with the transfer portal, which can be a really good thing for you or a really bad thing for you, depending if you evaluate those players correctly. And then also what I think may come back into play a little bit is high school freshmen. I don't think you need to give up on signing high school seniors to come in and play as freshmen. I think you have to combine those type of things. Use the transfer portal to your advantage on specific needs, and then also keep bringing in some high school seniors. I had some success with freshmen at LSU and Glenn Davis and Brandon Bass, Taurus Bright. Those guys turned out pretty good. So I still think that high school seniors can come in and freshmen and play, coupled with the use of the portal to enhance the needs of your team.
No, I agree. Listen, this is a point I've been making the last couple of weeks with a guy at Newman, Cannon Jefferson, who can play. I mean, this kid can play. He can play at Tulane very easily. He could even play at LSU. But he's waiting because these coaches want to see the portal first, and I get it. Right. I mean, that's instant success. It didn't work for LSU as much, but that guy got in it late. Obviously, he didn't have as much time as some of these other teams that have already raided the portal. But the fact is you know, these teams can get rich fast. And I'm going to segue real quick on that. One person that definitely took advantage of it was Kim Mulkey. I mean, what a great job she did. Now, she's been around the game a little longer. She can evaluate it. You know, she's seen a lot more than, say, a Matt McMahon who was at Murray State, and he's not used to people wanting to come to his school from the portal. I mean, but these bigger schools, and LSU basketball certainly qualifies as one of those. I mean, talk about what Kim did in the masterful job, not just winning the tournament, but getting the players necessary to win that tournament.
Well, Kim Mulkey's resume speaks for itself, and her name alone can get her into almost any home in the country, particularly now. But even before, to be able to go into the portal as she did speaks of her reputation as a coach and what she accomplished at Baylor. Also, she was fortunate in this regard, too, that LSU women had the best offensive performance of the year in the championship game. I mean, you got a player gets 21 or 22 in the first half, and the previous game didn't score a basket. I mean, that means things were going your way, and it was kind of meant to be. But their offensive performance, 102 points in a championship game when they're averaging maybe in the mid-60s all year long, it all fell right. They played extremely well offensively. They've always been very good defensively. And Kim Mulkey deserves every accolade she gets by what she was able to do in her second year at LSU to take the Tigers to a national championship. It was really unbelievable.
Well, I still play in the Turner Sports from years gone by. Craig Sager started the brackets back in the late 80s, and I won the women's because of LSU. I was the only one to have LSU at 200 people. Obviously, I'm biased, so I picked them to win it. I didn't do so well in the men's tournament. Did you fill out a bracket this year and anything? Because I know
UConn was my last team standing. I didn't have them winning it all, but I did have them in the Final Four.
I'm going to tell you that's a big pick. I don't think many people had them. In fact, the last time I won a men's pool was when UConn won with Kimball Walker. I think that might have been back in 2010. Hey, John, one last thing. LSU Tigers next year. I know you call the games. I mean, you were a Final Four coach, and you've enjoyed the last several years being part of the LSU broadcast with Chris Blair. But what did you see this year? I mean, listen, I know they started off strong. They had a couple of nice out-of-conference wins. They played Kansas State right down the last second. They looked like they had won that game or at least put it in overtime. But then the clock started late, so they lost that one. That team ended up really good. So they had some points of success. They beat Arkansas when they were number 9. They got the SEC tournament win. They beat Vanderbilt when they had 5 wins in a row. But, you know, obviously a lot of people were a little disappointed with that long losing streak in the middle of the way. What is your take from this season and moving forward with Matt McMahon?
Well, I think there's 3 things the LSU team needs. I think it needs a really good point guard who can distribute the ball and play consistently and not turn it over. I think the second thing they need is a consistent outside shooter that can make a basket on his own when he needs to. And I think the third thing that team needs is somebody around the basket who can score around the goal, plus block shots and have some length to disrupt the other team's inside players. So if they can get those 3 things through the portal, keep a couple of the players that they like and they think they can develop. They've got 2 freshmen coming in. I think next year is a key for Matt McMahon in showing people that the program is moving forward and having a positive way about it.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll improve next season. I'm listening. I mean, this guy got the job. He had no players on the roster, so we're giving him a mulligan for sure. He deserves one, and I know he's going to do great things. And by the way, thanks for Kim Mulkey taking care of it. Nobody's even thinking about it anymore. They're not worried about it. More power to the women's team, and thank them. I want to thank Detillier and Dodson. That should be a law firm right there. What a great show this has been with those guys, wrapping up, obviously, some Pelicans that are still playing, and obviously the Saints draft, which is only 3 weeks away. I want to thank everybody in the back. You know who you are. Will Hill. Man, I can't do this without this guy. Of course, Ron and Jim. And I know Alex is off today. So I want to thank Tommy for coming in. Of course, my man Logan. So thank you all. We'll see you again next week. Don't forget, we're going to have Kim Mulkey coming here. We're going to have the LSU gymnast coming here. We're going to celebrate the women for the next few weeks as well, right here on Primetime Sports.